Hey guys, we're still going over a series of grammar classes and welcome to your lesson on infinitive phrases. So let's get into it. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to locate an infinitive phrase in the sentence and you will be able to identify them as adverbial, adjectival, and nominal. So let's look at it. What is an infinitive phrase, guys? An infinitive phrase is the infinitive form of a verb plus any complement and modifiers. You have an example. I want to bury the treasure quickly. So it's very obvious. You can very easily locate the infinitive phrase in this sentence. It's to bury the treasure quickly. The infinitive form is to bury. The modifier of the sentence is quickly, and the complement is the treasure. I want to bury what? I want to do what? Bury the treasure quickly. Bury what? The treasure. How? Quickly. So to bury is the infinitive form, the treasure is the complement, it's a direct object, and quickly is the modifier. Notice the complement of an infinitive verb will often be its direct object, and the modifier will often be an adverb, like you have it in this example. Now, the function of the infinitive phrase. It can be a noun. It can play the role of a noun. That means it's nominal. It can play a role of an adverb. That means it's adverbial, or it can be adjective. That means it plays the role of an adjective. Now, I'm going to ask you to pause for a second and try to come up with sentences of your own where you have infinitive phrases and where you can, this is kind of a classwork. You can try to pause the video and imagine sentences featuring infinitive phrases that are nominals, adjectivals, and adverbial. All right, so let's move on. Now let's look at what they look like when they are used as nouns. Like all nouns, if an infinitive phrase is used as a noun, it can be a subject, it can be an object, it can be a complement within a sentence. Let's look at these two examples where it acts like the subject. To have a big dream requires the same effort as having a small dream. Dream big. So what is the subject of this sentence? So what requires the same effort as having a small dream? It's to have a big dream. So this is a noun. And it's the subject of the sentence. The same thing for the second sentence. To complain is one thing. But when you're driving me insane, well, then I think it's time that we took a break. So the subject of the sentence is the phrasal, is the infinitive phrase to complain. To complain is one thing. So the infinitive is to complain, and the infinitive phrase is to complain is one thing. So that this is when it's used as a subject. Now let's see what it looks like when it's used as the object. He helped to build the roof. He helped to do what? To build the roof. Nobody wants to hear long speeches. In these two sentences, it's used as object. Now, in the two following sentences, they were used as complements. The only solution was to tell her the truth. Our aim is to help clients help themselves, not to tell them what to think. Now, if you look at these two sets of examples, you might say, hey, it's the same thing. It looks like the same thing to me. So why do they say that it's used as object in the first set of example, and why do they say that it's used as complement in the second set? So to understand this, let's try to read the notice. For the last two examples, the infinitive phrase is a subject complement and not an object. because it's using what we call a linking verb to re-identify or re-describe the subject. So, okay, so let's look at that. The only solution was to tell her the truth. So the only solution in this sentence would be like the subject. To tell her the truth is with describing the subject. To tell her the truth was the only solution. The only solution was to tell her the truth, which is different from he helped to build the roof. He helped, he was the subject, but to build the roof is not with defining he. It's just the object. He helped do what? Build the roof. And the second one, the solution was to tell her the truth. The solution to tell her the truth was the solution. Our aim is to help our clients help themselves. Help our clients help themselves is our aim. Is our aim. That means this is we're defining the subject using what we call the linking verb, which is the verb to be that is conjugated here, and it became is. So what you can do actually is try to pause and give it some more thought, and maybe eventually you will get the hang of it. But in the meantime, let's keep going. They can be used as adjectives. When an infinitive phrase functions as an adjective, it describes a noun or pronoun. Let me show you the best way to get this job done. So let's not spend a lot of time on that because I think it's pretty much straightforward. Infinitive phrases used as adverbs. Most infinitive phrases that function as adverbs tell us the reason why the action occurred. Another way you could start the phrase would be with in order to. For example, the officer returned to help the inspectors. Why did the inspector return? What was the reason? He returned in order to help the inspectors. The same thing for the second sentence. He opened the box to reveal a huge bullfrog. So his intention when he opened the box was to reveal the bullfrog. That was the reason why he did that. So he could have said he opened the box in order to reveal a huge bullfrog. In order to reveal a huge bullfrog, he opened the box. So when you have it, when you can do that, when you can start with in order like that, that means you have an adverbial infinitive phrase. Infinitive phrase can also be used without the to. That means when the infinitive is not preceded by to, this is what we call the bare infinitive. But we do that okay, look at that. Most infinitives are preceded by to, but you know what is a modal? Anytime you have a modal, for example, if you have may, might, could, should, any type of word like that, any type of verb like that, you can't put the to in front of the verb. For example, he should go home immediately. You can't say he should to go home. So when you have a modal, the verb, the infinitive has to drop the to. Okay, he should go home immediately. We might get the project finished by Friday. We can't say we might to get the project finished. So after the modal, you obviously have to ditch the to. There are other verbs, like the verb to feel, hear, help, let, make, see, and watch. When you have these verbs, you also have to use the bare infinitive. The bare infinitive will follow these verbs. Let's look at some examples. But in these cases, the direct object, there will be, you will have to involve a direct object. Let's look at the sentence. I watched them sweep the road as fast as they could. So the verb sweep is the infinitive. You couldn't say, I watched them to sweep. You see? You couldn't say, I watched them to sweep. So be after watch, you have to use the bare infinitive. I watched them sweep the road as far as they could. And the direct object is them. I watched who? Them. Do what? Sweep the road as fast as they could. So two things that you have here is after a verb like watch, you can't use to in the infinitive. You have to ditch the to and use the bare infinitive, and you also have to have a direct object in the sentence like that. Okay, so I think that was a pretty fast class. Infinitive phrases are quite easy to go over. So let's just look at your classwork. So I have some sentences here for you. What you have to do with them is locate the phrasal verb, the infinitive phrase in each sentence, and identify this infinitive phrase as nominal, adverbial, or adjectival. You have an example. Amy opened the door to let me into her room. To let me into her room is the infinitive phrase, and it's an adverbial. So you have to do this exercise with the rest of the sentences that you have here, the plumber and Jane, until you get to attempt an explanation. Well, so yeah, guys, this is pretty much it. You have your work to do on infinitive phrases, and thank you.